You're live here at the We the People Bilderberg Conference in Copenhagen. And I'm Farrell Montgomery, and I'm going to share a few thoughts with you while we're waiting for Paul Craig Roberts to call in. And we expect him to call in about 20 minutes or something. And anyway, so I'm going to open my heart a little bit. We're here at the Bilderberg Conference. That's because the most influential, most powerful people in the world, economically, are gathering here to coordinate their efforts to execute a plan for what they have with humanity. Their plan, many of the members of the Bilderberg group, what they thrive for, not necessarily for commercial gain, but to gain power. And that's simply because a lot of them fit a certain psychological group. Now, I'm not developing the background very well, but a lot of them are psychopaths. That means they lack love. So their political decisions, their economic decisions lack humanity that most of us, have. I'm just making a statement here, but what I'd like to do is develop the background, if I haven't, confused you too much. Okay, in the 1700s and through the early 1800s, there was a bunch of companies that were growing and fighting, competing with each other, going to war with each other, and sometimes cutting deals and merging even. And the end result was the British India Trading Company, or British East India Trading Company. The name went through a few transformations, over the 2.5 centuries. Everything. So basically, the way it resulted was this company had set up stock exchanges around the world. It had set up financial institutions over each exchange to service those exchanges. And then each exchange would service the nations in the region for each exchange. And today, like Wall Street, the Chicago Exchange, you've got the, the exchange in Hong Kong and the one in New Zealand. All around the world, you've got these stock exchanges. And they were set up initially so that company stock could be exchanged. And thus, William of Orange conquered London and brought in, this merchant class, established the New Venice, in London, the London Financial District. And of course, they had to have accurate timekeeping so they could keep records for, exchanges and everything, so there wouldn't be confusion, for legal legal purposes, things like that. But anyway, so these financial institutions have primary control over the societies, the economies, the politics and the primary politicians and commercial leaders in those regions. And it is the primary shareholders of these banks and these exchanges that, as the company evolved to what it is today, that it's in the Bilderberg. So they're the most influential people in the world. And that's the dark government, which is not really a government. It's actually a mafia, a form of mafia, criminal folks that are trying to hide behind what they say are governments, which are actually corporate or, commercial franchises of the company. Because in the late 1800s, the company, or the British East India Company, stopped calling itself the British East India Company, and the name went through some transformations that said, okay, the city of London, London, city of London, the company, and then they just dropped everything and just started calling themselves the company. Yeah, it's the company, the world company, the same company the CIA works for. That is the Black Ops side. Same company the Mossad works for, There's many dark agencies, like the Islamic Brotherhood works for the company. Al-Qaeda works for the company. These, the purpose is to basically churn up society so that, commerce can more easily be exploited by Wall Street. It is a high-tech version of, I'll take you way back in history, the camel trains, for example, 2,000-3,000 years ago. The camel trains, for example, would be assembled in Far East, Asia. They would buy spices, drugs, fabrics, slaves, precious metals and precious products and things like that, rubies. And then these camels, because the deserts were more secure than the rest of the land and even a lot of the ocean routes, they would have these camel trains, sometimes 20,000, on occasionally up to 50,000 camels at a time. I mean, those numbers are phenomenal, but they would traverse the great deserts, and they would have their waypoints where these camels and stuff would be serviced along the route. But, for example, through Mongolia, the southern steppes of Russia, and things like that, there developed a bunch of nomadic tribes, basically robber barons, that would prey upon the camel trains. They would steal a lot of the products. So basically, when the camel trains reached their destination, there would only be a part of the product left to introduce to the market. So what happened is these camel trains, when they started, they could only buy the product at the bare minimum price. So the people that put the labor into developing the products, they could only sell for minimum price, just barely get by. And then the buyers, because the value had been stolen from the goods, the buyers, or the sellers at the destination, they could only afford to sell at the highest price. And so they'd sell to princes and kings and stuff like that, or whatever. And that was pretty typical of how things happened. And then there's a lot of other elements in that picture also. I don't really have time to develop the scene and go into them, but I'll pull you back to the future, back to the present. So what happened is today you have grain, raw materials, things like that purchased at a bare minimum price. People are putting their sweat and their blood, threatening their lives, they're destroying their health and everything like that to produce these products. And then these products are being bought at slave labor prices. And then, for example, like grain is stuck on a barge or something. Anyway, the product is introduced into the transport system, the storage or transport system. And then while it's being moved to the location that it's being sold, it's also represented by shares on the stock exchange. And so while that product is going to the market, you've got people in the stock exchange that are not adding any value to it. The transporters themselves, they're adding value by moving it to a place where it's needed. But the transporters, they take their fair they add value to the product and they take their fair share from the value. But the people in the stock exchange that keep trading the securities back and forth, they're the ones that really hype the price of the product so that when it reaches its destination, for example, a bushel of wheat, sold in the States, it may be 12, 16, 18, 22 cents a bushel or something. But when that product reaches its destination, say the Sudan or, third world country, second world country, something, the buyer's paying almost 10 times the price. Whereas if you did not have that product being traded on the stock exchange and the majority of the value being removed from the product without any value added to the product, the people that bought it could afford it much more easily. So today the stock exchange is how the powermongers, one of the ways that the powermongers are controlling society worldwide. They're subverting our local economies. They're subverting the creativity, our ability to produce and our ability to enjoy life and remain healthy and actually get along peacefully with each other. They're also destroying our ability to sustain. I'm not talking about sustainability. That's another subject I don't want to get off in, but it's a whole farce. I'll just say that. I'm talking about the typical. Okay, I'll not get hung up on that. So, the way the world is right now, the way society is right now, if we could stabilize everything, the world's population is going to level out at 12 billion people. If we can prevent political unrest, prevent all of this exploitation that occurs by the members of the Bilderberg group and their economic commercial empires that they've set up, controlling our different government systems around the world. If we can get a handle of all of this, then the whole world can thrive with 12 billion of us, even over, actually it's been calculated over 50 billion people. If we're able to be creative and, actualize humanity. But in a practical sense, population is going to stabilize at 12 billion and everything. That's another topic. Okay, how are we going to do this? We can. We're the ones that make the planet. We build, we make, we sustain, we harvest, We the people, we make the world. The power mongers, they're like ticks on our back. I'm being pretty pointed here, but that's exactly it. They don't manufacture anything. They don't add value. They destabilize and they suck value out of society and stuff. I don't want to start ranting and raving, because ranting and raving, it gets us emotional. And that's another shortcoming that they put us into. They train our children up to think emotionally instead of logically and rationally. They try to simplify our language, remove complex definitions, from our words. You can even tell by how they've so simplified our music anymore that there doesn't really seem to be any kind of progression of ideas or anything presented in our music anymore. I mean, but there's another topic that we could go off into. But I want to get past all of the little distracting things and get to the very core of the issue. Now I'm going to talk about some really hard subjects, and they were very difficult for me to learn because, for a lot of reasons. Okay, if you're willing to sit back and just listen for a little while, and please don't be judgmental, because to me this sounds bigoted, arrogant, everything like that. And it was difficult for me to just get to the point where I could actually realize this. I mean, reality is sometimes harsh. Here's the point. There's been tests conducted over the last 150 years across many, many societies, many, different types of communities, first, second, third world, where these tests, the more modern version is you have an individual placed at a table with a control panel in front of them, and then in front of them's a see-through mirror, and they can see into a soundproof room. And then the person sitting at the control console has within the room a known innocent party. I mean, an innocent individual that the controller knows is innocent. But in the room that the controller was sitting, there was also placed a perceived authority figure. And so anyway, what has happened is it's been repeatedly, and it's consistent. It doesn't matter the type of society the person comes from or his education level or anything like that, but it's consistent that 2/3 of the people will obey orders from the perceived authority figure up to the point, and including the point, where eventually they're ordered to inflict lethal harm to the known innocent party inside the room. Inside the soundproof room. 2/3 of people across all of humanity that's been tested, even across the last 150 years, has remained consistent. So that is kind of a scary thing that's part of human society. So, if you look at that, then the 1/3 of the people that chose not to obey that, they were basically they would filter the orders of the perceived authority figure through a value system that they held within. And if they were ordered by their authority to violate that value system, they chose not to. They chose to stand on their own authority and their own decency and their own values, and even defy authority to do that. And that's basically because they give a damn. Okay. I spoke harshly there. You look at that 1/3 of the people. They're the people that are empathetic, the people that have love in their heart, the people that are willing to put themselves out to care for others, especially innocent parties. Those are the people with love. They're the ones that add value to life, make life worth it, and they're the ones that they bring the new ideas. They're the most creative. Okay, I would like to go ahead and expound a little bit on, okay, you say these people are loving. Okay, what do you mean by love? Okay, the essence of love is upholding justice, mercy, and good faith. That's the definition of love, is upholding these principles: justice, mercy, good faith. If you violate in your interactions with others or another person justice, mercy, or good faith, then you can be at potential conflict or even warfare with whoever you violate these principles with. And so that makes these three principles, justice, mercy, good faith, the defining authority for what's called natural law. And natural law is basically, it's the laws of sociology. It's like the laws of physics are truth expressed in nature, expressed in the physical universe. In the social universe, the laws of physics, the laws of sociology are expressions of truth in social universe. They're not laws that are created by man. They exist no matter what. For an example, if we, as humans or members of humanity, came upon maybe some little green men from a woo-woo beyond or something like that, the laws of sociology would be the same, because these laws are not hewn by human hands. These laws are universal. They exist everywhere across the universe, just like the laws of physics. And they're also written within man's nature. So if, when society evolved or advanced from the hunter-gatherer society, where someone comes, they see, they take, once that society evolved to the point, like the agrarian society, they came, they saw, they said, aha, I can make this better. I can do an irrigation canal. I can put more water in this field, and I can grow corn and wheat. I can plant, trees and things like that for fruit. I can add value to the land. I can make it much more value. I can put work in. and make life much better for me, my family, my children, my grandchildren. And then a hunter-gatherer comes wandering through. You know, if the hunter-gatherer is respectful and maybe he takes a little bit or something like that and doesn't harm or anything, that's okay. But it takes a mindset of someone that sees, comprehends, and cares for another person's efforts. You know, respect for others. But if a hunter-gatherer comes in and he sees, he says, I want it all myself. So he kills the farmer and his family and takes his grain and everything like that, his sheep and, you know, cattle and things. That is a psychopathic mindset. It's a psychological set of mindset where they have no love in their heart. They lack the ability to see things from another person's perspective and relate to them in a caring way. And humanity has to grow past that. But humanity, in a way, needs the psychopath. Not to rule over us, but to cause us to come up. Okay, let me step back a little bit. You see, the empathetic people, you know, the loving people, when they see a problem, they say, people are hurting because of this, or people can do a lot better, or something. So they figure out a way to fix the problem, or perhaps improve things so that life will be much better and much easier. You know, like instead of people walking, they say, I'll make a bicycle, maybe with a little cart I can carry things. Or instead of a bicycle, they started out with carts and said, I can have my, my ox or my cow or my donkey or something like that pull the cart. You know, that's invention. And of course today we've got cars and trucks and airplanes and that's a natural progression of a creative, loving mind. Because a psychopath, even if a psychopath is smart and creative and has very good cognitive abilities and things like that, they lack love, so they do not want to put value, put effort into something to make other people's lives better, unless he can quickly exploit by putting up, something. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone over.